This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so once again, once I'm sharing my screen, I don't necessarily see everybody. So if you want to say something and you raise a finger or a hand and I don't respond, feel free to unmute and to speak up. Okay, in terms of things coming up, so we're going to be, those who want to join in, well, Mincha this evening's at 7:20. In between Mincha and Mariv, we'll be saying again Tehillim for the situation in Israel. All are welcome to join us there. 8 o'clock tonight after Mariv is our streaming Yizker. Yizker is set on the second. Just 1 second, someone's got to mute. Sorry.
Yeah, they had a great time.
Okay, so Yizker is said on the second day of Shavuot, which is Tuesday next week. Those who won't be attending in person, if you're davening at home, you can still say Yizker on your own without a minyan. At the same time, those who like to do it the way we do it in Beth Jacob, so I'll be streaming that this evening at 8 p.m. Tomorrow we have Kabbalat Shabbat, Mincha Kabbalat Shabbat streaming until the end of Lecha Dodi at 6:15, and Saturday night Shabbos ends this week. Shabbos ends this week will be the 15th at 8:24. So we'll have a guitar accompanied Havdalah at 8:45 this Motzei Shabbos. Also, we'll be sending out an email. The Federation is putting together a program with different rabbis leading different Tehillim on behalf of people of our brothers and sisters in Israel. That will be at 4:30 p.m., 4:30 to 5:30 tomorrow, Friday afternoon. I will send out that email also in a little bit. So let us come back to the point that we were discussing, Israel being the chosen nation. So we discussed last week the sources for the chosenness of Israel, and we discussed, most importantly, what does it mean to be chosen? In other words, chosen for what? And we discussed the idea of chosen to disseminate God into this world, to bring about a spiritual component to this world, to our existence, to the existence of mankind, of humankind, and to take these values given to us by God, right? Shavuos, of course, is the holiday of Mount Sinai, and bring that to the world, right? We might say, right, one of the 10 Commandments is don't murder. That's obvious. Who would think murder is okay? I don't need God to tell me that. Well, tell that to the people who are being chased by lions in the Roman amphitheaters as sport for everyone else to watch, or the gladiators who were to the death against one another as people were all cheering on. You know, we have our boxing, which is a very, very tame version of what used to be considered sport, and even that some people say is brutal and is an unfortunate sort of sport. Our Sunday afternoon pastime, watching football, is all. It's a war game. You're conquering territory until you completely conquer the entire field, at which point you have a touchdown. So it's been neutered to a certain degree, that you get 7 points as opposed to killing and raping whoever you've conquered, right? But that's society, and that's what it used to be, and it's only through the Torah that it has been tempered down. But there are many complaints that are lodged, and a great degree of anti-Semitism, even though it's that the Jews are rich or the Jews are poor, the Jews are capitalists or the Jews are communists, the Jews are warlike, the Jews are pacifists, right? Anti-Semitism always finds all of these contradictory reasons to fester and to come out. But one that's often used is, oh, you think you're better than us. Oh, you think you're chosen. Now, when you look at this for a moment, you realize that every religion feels that it was chosen for a certain degree to play its role in God's world. In fact, Judaism is probably amongst the least that can be considered to be racist in any way for a number of reasons that we'll go through. But a point that I often like to make is that according to, at least I think, as I understand it, Catholicism, if you don't Christianity, if you don't accept Jesus, then you got eternal damnation, right? So their way is the only way, right? And Islam, you've got to become a Muslim, right? Their way is the way. Whereas Judaism says absolutely not. As we'll see later today, on the contrary, we discourage those who are coming to convert, right? Because they don't need to convert in order to connect to God. But what is this, and how do we understand this idea of chosenness, and how is that not in any way related to racism? When we think of racism, apartheid, Nazism, right? That's a supreme race with a God-given right to control or even to enslave all of the undermentioned, all of the inferior races. Now, clearly, right, the chosenness of Israel is not in a physical dimension, but rather it is in this spiritual dimension, and it is a responsibility. It's a responsibility to bring God into this world, and it comes with many, many responsibilities, right? And do others want to take on all of these responsibilities, the 613 responsibilities? I mentioned in an earlier class this week, right? There are 7 Noahide mitzvot, Sheva mitzvot of Bnei Noach, and a convert takes on an additional 606. And 606 happens to be the numerical value, the gematria of the word, of the name of our quintessential Gioret, convert, and that is Ruth. We read the book of Ruth on Shavuot, right? And 606, Ruth Resh is 200, and Vav is 6, and Taf is 400, right? So, right, do others really want to take on the other 606 mitzvot? So therefore, clearly, right, the chosenness of the children of Israel has nothing at all to do with the idea of racism. It's different roles that are apportioned, that are given out. So let's look at source number 17 from Lord Jacobowitz, former chief rabbi of the UK. He writes as follows: yes, I do believe that the chosen people concept, as affirmed by Judaism in its holy writ, its prayers, and its millennial tradition, is valid. In fact, I believe that every people, included, and indeed in a more limited way, every individual is chosen or destined for some distinct purpose in advancing the designs of providence. Some fulfill their mission, others do not. Perhaps the Greeks were chosen for their unique contributions to art and philosophy, the Romans for their pioneering services in law and government, the British for bringing parliamentary rule into the world, the Americans for piloting democracy in a pluralistic society. The Jews were chosen by God to be peculiar unto me. Now, peculiar in an American sense is strange, whereas I think in a British sense, it doesn't have the same connotation. So we wouldn't say peculiar, we would say chosen, we would say unique unto me as the pioneers of religion and morality. That was and is their, meaning our, national purpose. Dr. Huston Smith in The World's Religions, we'll see 18 and 19. The outlook of the Jews on being God's chosen people is not chauvinistic. God's choosing to them was a call to serve, and when necessary, to suffer the ordeals such service entails. By requiring that they do and obey all that the Lord hath spoken, their election imposed on them a far more exacting morality than that of their contemporaries. For acceptance of the Torah opened the Jews to penalties for its violations. In the realm of historical fact, did I skip? In 18. God's choosing them was a call to serve in a mandate, to obey a demanding moral code far more stringent than for any other people. It is not then universally exclusive of all of God's people. 19, the Jews did not take themselves to have been chosen as recipients of special privilege. They were chosen to serve and to suffer the ordeals such service entails. By requiring that they do and obey all that the Lord had spoken, their election imposed on them a far more exacting morality than that of their contemporaries. In the realm of historical fact, no people have suffered as much as the Jews. I think most of us know that famous quote of Tevye, the fiddler, right? In Fiddler on the Roof, right? If we're so chosen, can't you choose someone else once in a while, right? Meaning, if we look at the suffering, right, it's an ordeal, it's a responsibility that carries a heavy yoke. And at times we have stepped up to that when it's been incredibly overwhelmingly difficult. Furthermore, if we look at the word racism, the root of that is race, having one distinct race. We had an OU group that Matt Williams, one of our shul members, who is in charge of the OU division of communities and taking surveys and gaining an understanding, polling in order to understand the direction going forward. He brought his whole group out for a Shabbos. This was about a year and a half ago, at least, with COVID, right? Things are all a long time ago. And one of them remarked to me that of all the Orthodox shuls that they have visited, they have never seen a shul as diverse as Beth Jacob, right? With Jews from all over, many converts, African American converts, Hispanic, Asian. I mean, there is no Jewish race. There's not even close to a Jewish race. Furthermore, according to halacha, what determines a person being Jewish is matriarchal, coming from the mother. And therefore, once again, right, you're not going to have a race if you're only looking at one of the two parents. So clearly, you can't level the charge of racism at a group that is racially diverse, that it's passed on through only one parent. And furthermore, as we see in source number 20, the Shulchan Aruch, the code of Jewish law in Yoredea, where it discusses the conversion process and procedure, says Ger shenichnas lekal Yisroel, a non-Jew who enters the community of Israel, chayav mila tchila, if he's male, he first has to undergo circumcision. After which, then there is the immersion in the mikvah. Of course, for a female convert, there's only immersion in the mikvah. Tvila hogenet, a proper immersion. The kevan shed taval, and once that person has immersed, hare hu ki Yisroel, that individual is now a full member, full-fledged Jew. No differences whatsoever. So you can't have a race that a non-race member can just, we have some politicians who decided they wanted to become something that they weren't, right? To present themselves as some sort of a minority in order to gain credibility, but it doesn't work that way. And the way that we view converts is once again best demonstrated from the book of Ruth that we will read on Shavuot, and in our Parsha class this past Tuesday, a couple of days ago, we discussed in depth the book of Ruth. And as the Yarut Vash writes, source number 21, Lamud Oto Shevet Lekabel Gerim Yehuda. The tribe of Yehuda is trained in accepting converts. Shua, the Tamar, Yehuda, he accepted Shua and Tamar, who married his sons. Boaz accepted Ruth. That is what the whole book of Ruth is about. Shlomo accepted Naamah ha-Ammonit. Umehem yatsa kol zera Beit David. This is not just any group, but the whole Davidic line of royalty descended from all of these converts that we have mentioned. The Goel ha'acharon im Yirtzeh Hashem, and the final Redeemer, the Mashiach, is a descendant, we discussed on Tuesday, of Ruth, but is a descendant of all of these converts. That's where it all began, and that's how it continued on through. Now, another fundamental concept is part of racism is to denigrate, to demean all those who are not part of your race. We are superior. Others are meant to serve us, to be secondary to us. Whereas the Torah teaches, as we'll soon see some sources, that every human being is created in the image of God. And therefore, actually, as Rabbi Schwab would say, a Jew has to see more value in a Gentile than a Gentile ever sees in Gentiles. We need to see the value of every human being to a degree that is far greater than the value that they themselves attribute to one another and to themselves. Why is that? What is that based on? So let's go right to the beginning. Let's go to Bereshit. There the Torah says, Shfach dam ha'adam, ba'adam damo yishafech. If a person spills the blood of a person, then his blood shall be spilt. Capital punishment for murder. Why? Ki b'tselem Elokim asa et ha'adam. Because man was created in the image of God. Every man, woman, every human being, mankind is created in the image of God. So whenever we see another human being, we're supposed to sense that image of God is before us. And that's what Rabbi Schwab was saying. I don't think most Gentiles view one another or themselves as, I'm in the image of God. So we need to view them in a higher manner than they view themselves. That is certainly far divorced from the idea of racism, that I am greater than everyone else. The rabbis, the sages, source number 23 in Pirkei Avot, we say Chaviv Adam, beloved is mankind, Shenivra B'Tselem, that was created in this image of God. Chiba Yetera no dat lo, and there is an added endearment that it was made known to him, Shenivra B'Tselem, that he was created, that mankind was created in the image of God. Shenemar B'Tselem Elokim Asa et Ha'adam. In the image of God, mankind was made. So not only do we have this gift, but the extra love that God demonstrated was making sure that we know that we have this gift. All right? You know, you put $100,000 in someone's account, but they don't have the account number and you don't tell them, they don't know the gift that they have. Here, we were given that gift. Source number 24, the Gemara in Brachot. Amru Allah, they would say about Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai, Shelo hikdimu Adam shalom me'olam. No one ever beat him to the draw and greeted him before, and he would just respond. He was always the one to initiate that shalom, that greeting. Vafilu nachri b'shuk, even a Gentile in the marketplace, whoever it was, he was the first to initiate the greeting. And taking this a step further, it's not just, hey, how are you? It is shalom. Shalom, we know, comes from the root word of shalem, of completion, right? I wrote there, I didn't write a copy of that, implying a unified achievement of completion. When we say shalom to someone, we're recognizing that they are an integral part of the shleimut, of the fullness, the unity, the completion, this world being in a complete state. That is the deeper meaning of shalom. That's why one of God's names is shalom, because of that shleimut, that completion, that wholeness, that perfection. And source number 25, Rabbi Malkiel Kotler, who is the Rosh Yeshiva of the Lakewood Yeshiva, one of the largest yeshivas in the world, not in Lakewood, California, near the Long Beach airport, but in Lakewood, New Jersey. And he clearly stated, our philosophy asserts that every human being is created in the image of the Lord, and the primacy of integrity and honesty in all dealings without exception. I strongly repudiate any assertions in the name of Judaism that do not represent and reflect this philosophy. So there's no racism when we must treat others with the utmost respect and recognize the image of God that is evident in all of the others. Now, when people come and approach me for conversion, one of the first things that I say to them is, are you crazy? Right? I say to them, you don't need to convert in order to be close to God. You don't need to convert in order to play your role in this universe, your God-granted role in this universe. You don't need to convert in order to have an afterlife. You don't need to do that. As Rambam, right? And therefore, once again, This is as far divorced from racism as possible. Everyone's in the image of God. Everyone can have that relationship. Everyone can have that eternity. As Rambam writes in his laws of Teshuvah, Hilchot Teshuvah, source number 26. V'chein chasidei umot ha'olam, the righteous amongst the nations of the world. There's no free tickets for anyone, but the righteous among the nations of the world, yesh lahem chelek la'olam haba. They have a portion in this olam haba, in the world to come. Tana Devei Eliyahu, source number 27. This is teachings from Eliyahu, none other than Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Navi. And he writes, he teaches, Me'id ani alayat hashamayim v'ta'aretz. I call upon heavens and earth to testify. Bein Yisroel, Bein Goy, whether it is a Jew or a non-Jew, Bein Ish, Bein Isha, man or woman, male or female, Bein Eved v'shivcha, including a slave or a maidservant. Hakol lefi hamas eshu oseh, everyone according to the actions that they do. Kach ruach hakodesh shora alav. To that degree, the ruach hakodesh, the divine spirit, divine inspiration, rests upon that person. No matter who they are, no matter what religion, it doesn't, right? Jew, non-Jew, right? We speak about olam haba, and the Nefesh HaChaim says, perhaps it's a better term would be not olam, the world, haba, right? That comes, which implies it just comes, but olam sheba, the world that comes, meaning more directly from our actions, right? That we are the ones that create that eternity for ourselves by the actions that we choose to do. As in 28, the Sifra and the Gemara, the Babylonian Talmud, Afilu goy va'oset Torah reu kohen gadol, a non-Jew who fulfills the Torah that is applicable to him is considered to be on the level of a Kohen Gadol, a high priest. As we say, everyone needs to maximize their potential. When we say, when will my actions become as great as the actions of Avraham, of the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Abraham, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, Leah, the matriarchs, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah. How can we ever reach their level? If we'll maximize our potential in the same way that they maximized their potential. No one has ever asked to maximize someone else's potential, only their own. And if we do that, then we are in the league of Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. Yeah. Afilu nachri v'osek b'Torah. Once again, this non-Jew who is involved studying in the Torah, again, that which is relevant, harehu, that person is like a Kohen Gadol. Equality, right? Right? We believe it to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Is that true? Does anybody believe that I have the same athletic ability as a LeBron James or a Rafa Nadal? Do I have the same analytical ability as an Einstein? Are all people equal? I mean, some people are fabulously wealthy and born into that. Some people are impoverished and born into that. So what is actually the meaning of equality that makes any sense in the Declaration of Independence? And what is the Jewish view on this? Right? We would say all should be given equal opportunities to make the most of their individualized abilities and skills. Opportunity needs to be equal. So let's take a look at source number 29. Rabbi David Gottlieb from the book The Informed Soul. Descriptive equality. We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men are created equal. The Declaration of Independence thus states its belief that people are in fact equal to one another. Now, in some respects, that is true. Everyone is equal. Everyone is born, and everyone dies. Everyone breathes. Everyone eats. Everyone sleeps. Everyone excretes. Certain experiences affect us with pleasure, love, success, ice cream, and pain, failure, a visit to the dentist. But in other respects, it is clearly false. We vary considerably in physical characteristics. Everyone's equal. I'm 5'9". This one is 5'2". That one is 6'5". It's not equal. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but don't tell me that it's equal. Height, weight, strength, coordination. Some people are very athletic. Other people are not athletic. Color, beauty, intelligence, personality traits, sympathy, sensitivity, industry, self-control, and certain sources of pleasure, Bach by some, the Beatles by others. Given all these differences, does a blanket assertion of equality make any sense? What we cannot do is oppose chosenness by a blind blanket commitment to equality. How can you say the Jews are chosen? Isn't everyone equal? Right? We see that people are different. That's actually the beauty. You say Jews are different. We believe that all people created are equal, so it must be wrong. Thus, Judaism has no difficulty with descriptive equality. We can describe in what ways everyone is equal, and in many ways that we are different. Yes, correct. We're going to come back to someone wrote a note there. Yes, we will double back to that. Let's see. Eric Fromm, I didn't include this in the notes over here, right? Equality is the opposite of racism. Racism is that I am greater and therefore I can control and subjugate you. You, the inferior one, need to be there to serve me. Equality is that each person is an end in and of him or herself and must never be a means to anybody else. Right? Slavery is turning someone into a means for me. Hiring somebody, they decide they want to work, and the compensation is agreed upon. That's not a means for anyone else. That person is an end in and of himself. Of course, we all interrelate and interconnect and work together, but that does not make anyone a means for anyone else. Rabbi Adin Steinsaltz, another one of the great people that we lost this year. We lost some truly amazing, amazing people. Rabbi Sachs, Rabbi Steinsaltz, of David Feinstein. We've lost some Rabbi Abraham Twersky. We lost some real luminaries of the Jewish people. The question was posed to him. We live in an egalitarian moment in which it is considered everyone is equal. Everyone is free. The idea of hierarchy is perceived as an arbitrary imposition on the freedom of man. How realistic is this concept in your point of view? And Rabbi Steinsaltz answered as follows. My point of view is almost the opposite. Egalitarian ideas are not supported by any evidence. The inequality of man is blatantly apparent. The only way one can find any support for the idea of equality is in a very difficult, somewhat mystical religious concept. The concept that, as we quoted before, the pasuk in Bereshit, in Genesis, that people are born in the image of God and are therefore equal in some fundamental way because each and every human being is in this image of God. There is no other argument that I have heard that serves any purpose. All egalitarian movements are an outcome of Judeo-Christian ideas that contain within the notion of receiving a divine soul that for everyone is more or less the same. All forces everywhere, within and without, work against equality. People are so inherently different, not only different, but unequal, that it requires a constant struggle to accept the notion of some kind of equality. The only justification for the idea is what you may call a mystical one. Even though people don't appear to be equal, there is something equal in them. From this point of view, whether it is a good thing or not such a good thing, hierarchy seems to me to be a given element, inherent in creation and in nature. This is nature. Everything else is an attempt to change nature. So the equality is in this concept of everyone being created in this in this image of God. Beyond that, we're not equal. We're very, very different. And I would just add in, we're all equal in our ability to maximize our potential. And once we do that, then we are viewed equal to anyone else that has. The heavens will view us as equal to anyone else who has maximized their potential. Even if one person's potential is up here, another person's potential is much more limited. I don't want to say lower, but much more limited. The last point we want to talk about, is why were the Jewish people chosen? And the truth is, we can never know fully. We can share that which God has shared with us, but always when it comes to anything like that, I like to compare it to a person who's living on the top floor of a building, and there is a leak. A leak is coming through the roof. So what does the person assume is on the roof? Some drops of water are on the roof because that's what's coming through. In fact, there is an ocean of water, on a lake of water on this roof. But it's that little bit that comes through. From the little bit that comes through, there's no way we can assess what is that entire body that is there, that entire essence that is there. God shares some aspects of himself with us. Therefore, we can gain an understanding in some of these concepts, but not accept or have the delusion that that is the totality. So if God has shared some aspects of himself with us, that's what he shared. We have no idea of the totality. If God has shared some reasons why the Jewish people were chosen, we can't have delusion that that is the totality. But let's see what God has shared. And with that, we'll come to our last three sources. The pasuk in Devarim says, "Lo mirubchem mikol amin, chashak Hashem b'chem v'yichar b'chem." not because of your great numbers as God desired you and chosen you. Ki atem hama'at b'kol ha'amim. You are amongst the smallest of the nations. Right? One of the proofs that we bring, Eshet Torah has a whole series on this, of God is that we are, the prophecies say that we're going to be an eternal nation, and yet we're going to be the smallest of the nations. All these work against one another. We'll have this eternity, but we will be persecuted. For it's because of God's love for you and his guarding of his oath, which he swore to your forefathers. Right? Further there in Devarim, Rak ba'avotecha chashak Hashem la'avotam. Your forefathers God cherished to love them, and he chose them and their offspring after them from among all the peoples as this day. And what's fascinating, that's often overlooked, what we say in our Amidah, every single time we say that Amidah, we say that God remembers the Avot, the patriarchs, and will bring the redemption to his children. But what aspect of the patriarchs is he Zocher? And he remembers the Zocher Chazdei Avot, the acts of kindness that they did. So we're saying, how can I be like the matriarchs? Well, what is it that God remembers about them? Chazdei Avot, the kindness of the Avot. And that's something that we can be like the Avot and Imahot, patriarchs and matriarchs, in being kind. In being kind. Let's see the last source, my friends. Source number 33. God chose Avraham because Avraham chose God. Just 1 second. Yeah, for you guys, it's gone to 2 pages. God chose Avraham because Avraham chose God. From Noah until the Egyptians, the actions of man had banished spirituality to exist only in the removed planes way above. In turn, Avraham and his descendants gradually reversed this process, bringing spirituality back down into this physical world. Avraham was given 10 tests, and never in history had an unaided individual made such a complete break with his environment, overcoming all obstacles for a yet unknown faith. When Avraham recognized God, he set out to convince others, even though this was highly dangerous. Avraham persisted even after a narrow and miraculous escape from death. Avraham paid a high price for his commitment to teaching others. He did not achieve the exalted levels of spirituality which Chanoch, Shem, and Aver did. And he was instructed to leave everything he had built up. Lech lecha, leave it all behind, he was commanded. He left penniless to continue his mission where we might have thought he would meet with less success in a foreign land with a foreign tongue. But ultimately he was rewarded with enormous success. Unlike Shem, Aver, and others, that was the son and grandson of Noah, he took pain to ensure the continuity of the God idea in the world. This choosing of God on the part of the patriarchs continued in the form of Isaac and Jacob, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. All of this amounted to generations of total commitment by the Jewish nation to living and dying for God when necessary and fulfilling his will. Therefore, God's choosing us is a response to our first choosing him, and then again and again, over many generations, under the most trying circumstances and exacting standards. Understanding how we became chosen allows us to define the basic responsibility of a Jew, which is fulfilling the criteria that made us chosen. We too, as individuals, must choose God, following the path of our ancestors whose deeds pave the road of the chosen people. So we were chosen to bring God to the world. We were chosen because we chose God. And we as individuals need to step up to that role, to that responsibility through choosing, we ourselves choosing God and bringing heaven down to earth, bringing spirituality into this world, and by acting and being a role model of what a Jewish person and what a human being is meant to be. Okay, my fellow travelers on this mission, thank you all for joining. Anybody wants to say something, join in, please feel free to mute yourselves. Again, I don't see everybody, so I don't see any fingers that might be going up, asking for permission, so I can't call on you.
Rabbi, thank you. This 2-week was really good, really cohesive.
Thank you very much. And I hope it will be a good preparation as we go into the holiday of Shavuot. Once again, tonight 7:20 is Mincha, followed by Tehillim for our brothers and sisters in Israel. Streaming Yizkor is at 8 o'clock. Kabbalat Shabbat Mincha, Kabbalat Shabbat until the end of the Chagudi is tomorrow at 6:15. Streaming musical Havdalah with a guitar is at 8:45. And let me wish everybody a good Shabbos, and if I don't see you, and a good Yom Tov if I don't see you. A very uplifting and meaningful Shavuot. We're going to be having all night learning here at the shul. Yom Tov we can't stream, but feel free to come for it, for parts of it, and it should be a beautiful evening.
Starting at 10:30 p.m. or 10 p.m.?
So 11:15 p.m.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Normally it starts 10:30 when we have the meal here. So no one needs to walk home and walk back. But I got about a 20-minute walk home and a 20-minute walk back. So we'll be starting 11:15.
Until what, like 4:30 in the morning?
We'll go until davening. Davening will start about 5 a.m.
Okay.
We'll go till sunrise. We'll
So
beat the sun.
we could maybe come from 4 to 5 or something too.
Everyone can come for as much as they feel comfortable coming for, and that they can handle, whatever works. Yeah. Yep. No matter what it is, it's always good, always important. That we see from Ruth, right? One person brought Mashiach. Yeah. Whatever we do is important. Okay, my friends. A good day, everybody. Shalom, shalom.
Rabbi,
Yes.
could you send a copy of this to everyone too, please?
It's the same as last week's, Linda.
Yeah. Oh, same as last week's. Okay.
Same as last week's. Last week we stopped after source number 16, and today we picked up at 17. So it's the same as last week's. All right? Okay, everybody, be well.